Welcome back. Today we're diving into a really fascinating explainer focused on ethics leads to unity, or as the ancient text calls it, Liyun Datong. Picture a society so completely secure and so deeply grounded in mutual care that people literally don't even think about locking their doors at night. Sounds impossible, right? But the text we're breaking down today actually maps out the exact philosophical and frankly structural mechanics required to build exactly that. So let's jump right in.
Right off the bat, our source material hits us with this incredibly powerful translation. When the great way is practiced, the world is shared by all alike. Man, that sets the baseline perfectly, doesn't it? We aren't just talking about achieving some personal enlightenment in a vacuum here. No, this is a bold declaration that true spiritual and ethical practice has to result in a world that belongs equally to everyone. No exceptions. It's a super high-minded concept for sure, but as you'll see, the text demands highly practical application.
To get there, we've got a clear roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the vision of great unity, look at what it means to turn the Dharma wheel, identify the root of conflict, break down the dual solution, and finally wrap up with balancing the paths.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the vision of great unity.
So, what does this utopian world actually look like on the ground? Well, the source text sets some very specific parameters. It states that in this great unity, care is completely universal. People aren't just looking out for their own immediate families. The elderly have a secure, comfortable place to live out their days. Orphans, widows, and people with disabilities are comprehensively supported by the community. On top of that, people who have specific skills dedicate their talents to the public good, rather than just hoarding wealth for themselves. And because everyone's basic needs are fully met, the text argues that things like conspiracies and theft, they literally just cease to exist. Which, perfectly explains why those doors stay unlocked.
Moving right along to our second point, turning the Dharma wheel.
Now, you might be wondering, how in the world do we actually achieve this? Well, the text answers this by shifting our focus to a very specific mechanism. Let's act as translators for a second and break down the terminology here. Li translates to ethics or proper conduct. Yun means continuous movement or turning. So when you put them together, the concept is literally the active, relentless turning of the wheel of ethics to construct this unified world. It is not passive at all. It requires continuous momentum.
The source text actually uses the visual of the Dharma wheel to really drive this concept home, kind of comparing it to the wheel of a carriage. By continuously turning this wheel of ethics, we actively expand what the text calls the realm of ethics. It's a journey, right? An active, ongoing effort to spread these teachings and fundamentally shift human behavior on a global scale.
But of course, there are always obstacles. That brings us to part 3, the root of conflict.
To turn that wheel effectively, we first have to take a hard look at the roadblocks. According to the text, the absolute root cause of societal fracture comes down to a flaw in our perception. Basically, when we look at the world through our physical eyes, what do we see? We just see duality. We see division, race, language barriers, a whole lot of us versus them. This physical perception is exactly where conflict breeds. But the text contrasts this with the spiritual eye. When we awaken that spiritual awareness, our universal Buddha nature, we look right past the physical differences. We recognize a fundamental, inescapable equality among all life. It's a total paradigm shift.
Okay, so how do we fix it? Let's dive into part 4, the dual solution.
Realizing we're all equal is a fantastic starting point, but how does that actually fix our societal structures? Well, the text brilliantly provides a structural diagram for a dual solution. It splits the answer into 2 distinct yet totally interdependent branches, the internal practice and the external practice. And this is absolutely crucial. To achieve the great unity, you literally cannot have one without the other. They are a package deal.
Let's look at the first half, internal practice. The text notes that this is essentially the unpaid spiritual labor. This is all about transforming the human mind from the inside out, because as the text argues, a falling world must be saved by Dharma, by fundamental truth. If the root of our conflict is a degraded mindset, then the internal practice is the heavy lifting of teaching, studying, and cultivating spiritual oneness. It's stripping away those illusions of division we were just talking about. Think of it like upgrading the internal software of humanity itself.
But here is the kicker. Internal meditation alone simply isn't enough. You have to pair it with external practice, which the text explicitly defines as concrete, tangible social welfare. This is the paid, structural work. Just look at the specificity in the source material. We're talking about building nursing homes, orphanages, establishing job matching centers, and providing disability care. The text actually frames this boots-on-the-ground social work as nonprofit divine work. It's about taking that internal realization of equality and physically building the societal safety nets that prove it out in the real world.
Which leads us perfectly into our final section, balancing the paths.
So how do these two halves actually integrate to create a cohesive whole? Interestingly, the source text draws upon the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching here, utilizing the yin-yang symbol to make its point. The internal and external practices aren't competing ideas at all. They are complementary opposites that have to turn together in perfect harmony. The spiritual elevation of the mind and the physical uplifting of society must coordinate seamlessly if we're ever going to keep that Dharma wheel turning.
And this brings us to the ultimate argument the text makes about governing by ethics. When you successfully balance these two paths, when people have that solid foundation of moral clarity from their internal practice, and they have all their basic survival needs met through external social welfare, a pretty magical thing happens. Society just regulates itself. The text explains that even without harsh laws or brutal punishments, the state remains completely peaceful. And when you think about it, why wouldn't it? Because when people are truly spiritually grounded and physically secure, that greedy desire to steal, cheat, or hoard, it just vanishes. Society becomes unbreakable from the inside out.
It's just an incredibly profound, yet structurally sound philosophy, isn't it? It challenges us to look way beyond just meditating for our own personal peace and demands that we actually build a society that reflects that peace externally. So I want to leave you with a question to ponder today. How can you balance internal mindfulness with tangible external action in your own community right now? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer on Ethics Leads to Unity. Keep learning, stay curious, and we will catch you next time.